How does a player with this much fire, this much raw, undeniable talent, manage to stay a relative secret to the wider footballing world until the age of 25? It's a question that's always fascinated me because Bruno Fernandes isn't just a player I admire. He's a player I feel like I've watched grow up. Being Portuguese gave me a front-row seat to his meteoric rise at Sporting CP, watching him transform almost overnight from a promising talent into one of the most formidable attacking midfielders on the planet. In this video, we're going to peel back the layers of his journey. We're going to look back and understand how a player this incredible, this passionate could remain anonymous for so long. It's a story of resilience, of belief, and of a fire that simply refused to be extinguished. So if you love stories about the heart and soul of football, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications because you won't want to miss this one. He was born in Maia, a suburb in the district of Porto. So close to where I'm attending college, I could probably jog there in under an hour. It's a place of industry, of hard work, not a place known for producing footballing superstars. He came from a solid middle-class family with just one older brother, Ricardo. And it's through his brother's interviews with the press that we get the first crucial glimpse into the mind of a young Bruno. From the moment he could walk, it seems there was only one path for him. His brother said that as a young kid, Bruno made a decision. Not a wish, not a dream, but a decision. He was going to be a professional football player. That was it. That was all that mattered. Think about that for a second. At an age when most kids are still figuring out their favorite color, Bruno had his entire life mapped out. There was no plan B. He didn't even entertain the thought of one because in his mind he didn't need it. Failure wasn't an option he was willing to consider. He just knew with a certainty that bordered on prophetic that this was his destiny. He was going to make it happen. His youth career started in a way that's almost poetically humble. He spent a year at Infesta FC, a small local club. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone, where the smell of freshly cut grass mixes with the chatter of parents on the touchline. What's fascinating is that the youth squad he joined was unisex, meaning boys and girls trained and played on the same team. It was here that his defining characteristic first roared to the surface, his unyielding, ferocious desire to win. His brother laughingly told the press that the coaches had to constantly pull Bruno aside, telling him, "Calma, Bruno, calma, you have to calm down." Because in the heat of the game, he'd get so invested, so laser-focused on winning the ball, that he kept accidentally hurting the girls. He wasn't malicious, he was just intense. Even then, as a small boy on a mixed-gender team, a game was never just a game. It was a battle. Every single time. As you can imagine, it didn't take long for people to realize that this kid was operating on a different level. His talent needed a bigger stage. It wasn't just about his skill, but his mentality. This wasn't a kid you could intimidate. On the dusty streets of Maia, he'd insist on playing with his older brother's friends. These were boys who were bigger, stronger, and years older than him. But Bruno didn't care. He'd get knocked down and pop right back up, demanding the ball, unafraid of the physical challenge. His brother said it was that fearlessness that stunned everyone. Bruno wasn't afraid of anything or anyone. That fearlessness was put to the ultimate test at a youth tournament. This was his first real chance to shine, playing against the youth academies of the biggest clubs in the district, Boa Vista, and the true giant of the region, FC Porto. This was a Porto whose senior team had just conquered Europe, lifting the Champions League trophy under a young Jose Mourinho. The aura around the club was immense. Scouts lined the pitches, clipboards in hand, looking for the next big thing. And by the end of the tournament, the name on everyone's lips was Bruno Fernandes. As you'd expect, both Boa Vista and FC Porto came calling, eager to sign this fiery, talented kid. But then, a problem emerged. A ridiculously simple, almost comical problem that would change the course of his career. Maia, while close to Porto, wasn't exactly next door. Neither of his parents had a driving license, making the daily commute to training impossible. An easy fix, right? In Portugal, it's incredibly common for big clubs to have vans or buses that pick up their most promising young players. It's a standard part of the academy system. Well, for some reason, a reason that still boggles the mind, FC Porto decided it was too much of an inconvenience. They weren't willing to arrange a ride for him. And just like that, they lost him. Boavista, on the other hand, made a simple promise. They told his family, "Don't worry, we'll send a car to pick him up and drop him off for every single training session." It was a small gesture, but it was enough. They showed they wanted him, and Porto didn't. Okay, I have to take a tangent here. As a long-suffering FC Porto fan, this story physically pains me. I'm already carrying the emotional baggage of our club, letting João Felix slip through our fingers. Now try to imagine the sheer soul-crushing agony of learning that we had Bruno Fernandes. The Bruno Fernandes within our grasp, and we let him go. Over a freaking car ride. My God, if I had a time machine, I'd go back and pay for his Ubers myself for a decade if I knew the player he was destined to become. It's one of those what-if moments that will haunt the club forever. Getting back on track, one of the most impressive things about Bruno's time at Boavista was how long it took him to find his natural position. The coaches saw his intelligence and versatility and used him everywhere. He played as a commanding center back, reading the game and launching attacks from deep. He played as a box-to-box midfielder, his engine tireless. He even played as an out-and-out striker, his finishing instincts already sharp. The only place they never seemed to put him was out on the wings, for whatever reason. This wasn't a case of a player struggling to fit in. It was a testament to a player who understood the game on such a profound level that he could excel in any role. And here's something else. I found something that speaks volumes about his character. To this day, he remains in constant contact with his old youth teammates from Boavista. They have a WhatsApp group where they chat almost every single day. One of them, in an interview, said something that really stuck with me. He said that back then, none of them thought Bruno would reach the incredible heights he has. It wasn't a knock on his talent, but rather an observation of his journey. He said Bruno wasn't a wonder kid who had it easy. He achieved everything through sheer relentless perseverance. He simply outworked, out-hustled, and outbelieved every single person who ever stood in his way. If there was one single defining moment that showcased just how far Bruno was willing to go for his dream, it was his first professional move in 2012. He was only 17 years old. And as I told you, football was his entire world. Nothing else mattered. Not parties, not hobbies, and certainly not school. So he just dropped out. It wasn't because he was a bad student or troublemaker. It was because an offer had landed on his table, an offer that in his mind was the golden ticket. He was going to pack his bags and move by himself to Italy to play for Novara in Serie B. He wasn't even old enough to legally drink, and he was moving to a new country to chase a dream that most people would have called impossible. And once he got there, it was hell. Absolute hell. After only 1 week, he was on the phone back home, his voice cracking, telling his family that maybe it was for the best if he just quit and came back. You can believe in yourself with every fiber of your being. But being a 17-year-old kid in a foreign country with no friends, no family, and no grasp of the language, it's an isolating, crushing experience for anyone. The dream suddenly felt very far away, replaced by a harsh, lonely reality. But luckily for Bruno, and for the entire footballing world, he wasn't entirely alone. He had a girlfriend back in Portugal, Ana Pinho. She had been with him since they were teenagers, and she believed in him with a fierce loyalty that matched his own ambition. Hearing the despair in his voice, she made a decision, that was just as brave as his. At just 16 years old, she packed her own bags and moved to Italy to live with him. Her presence, her unwavering support was the anchor he desperately needed. It empowered him, it grounded him, and it allowed him to find his focus again. What would you have done in that situation at 17? Alone in a new country with your dream turning into a nightmare? Would you have quit, or would you have found the strength to push through? Let me know your honest thoughts in the comments below. It's a fascinating question to ponder. With Anna by his side, Bruno's entire world shifted. He was no longer just a lonely kid in a foreign land. He was a man with a mission again. And his talent now unleashed was impossible to ignore. After only a few more weeks with the youth team, he was promoted to the Novara first team. He made his senior debut, and over the course of that first season, he became a vital part of the squad. He was often used as an impact substitute coming off the bench to change the game. He managed a remarkable 9-goal contributions, helping guide Novara to the promotion playoffs. They ultimately fell short, but Bruno had made his mark. That summer, his performances earned him a move to the top tier to Serie A to play for Udinese. This was a massive step up. The competition was fiercer, the defenders were smarter, and the pressure was immense. But Bruno thrived. He started scoring and assisting with even more frequency. His name started to generate buzz, and the inevitable comparisons began. But because he hadn't yet settled into his trademark all-action playmaker role, the comparisons were all over the place. Some saw the vision and passing range of Andrea Pirlo. Others saw the ghostly movement and creativity of Javier Pastore. And some, especially back home in Portugal, saw the midfield mastery of the great Rui Costa. He was a footballing chameleon, still figuring out what kind of legend he wanted to be. At Udinese, Bruno forged a special and crucial friendship with a club icon, the legendary striker Antonio Di Natale. Toto, as he was known, was one of the most lethal forwards of his generation, a man who lived and breathed goals. He saw something in this young Portuguese kid, a spark, a fire, but also something that frustrated him. Di Natale once said in an interview that Bruno irritated him. Why? Because in his words, Bruno had more skill, more raw talent than any other player at Udinese, but he wasn't playing at his fullest potential. He wasn't demanding the ball enough, wasn't taking games by the scruff of the neck. He was still too deferential, too quiet. Looking back now, you can see Di Natale was absolutely right, wasn't he? He saw the lion inside Bruno long before it was ready to roar. Regardless, by his third season at the club, things had started to sour. Di Natale had left, and Udinese were struggling, finishing just 1 point above the relegation zone. Despite his obvious talent, Bruno found himself frequently being subbed off, his game time inconsistent. Just as Udinese clearly expected more from him, Bruno expected far more from his club. He was tired of battling for survival. He wanted to fight for trophies. So he decided it was time to move once again. He joined Sampdoria, another historic Serie A club. He was handed the iconic number 10 shirt, a shirt once worn by the legendary Roberto Mancini. He found himself sharing a dressing room with incredible talents and even bigger personalities like the mercurial Antonio Cassano, the powerful striker Duvan Zapata, and the tenacious midfielder Lucas Torreira. For a moment, it seemed like the perfect fit. But one problem remained, a problem that gnawed at his very soul. The club finished the season in a respectable but ultimately unremarkable 10th place. For Bruno, this was mediocrity. It wasn't enough. The club's lack of ambition, their contentment with being a mid-table side, rubbed him the wrong way. He played to win every single time, and he felt like he was fighting that battle alone. But just as his club career in Italy seemed to be hitting a plateau, his star was beginning to rise back home in Portugal. His name was being mentioned more and more frequently. He had been named the captain of the Portugal under-21 national team, a squad brimming with future superstars like Diogo Jota, Renato Sanchez, and Gonçalo Guedes. He was leading the next golden generation. As this was happening, clubs in Portugal started to think that maybe, just maybe, it was time to rescue him from Italy, where his career seemed to have stalled. After some negotiations, a deal was struck. Bruno Fernandes was coming home. He joined Sporting CP for a fee of around €7 million. And at Sporting, under the famously demanding coach Jorge Jesus, he immediately and spectacularly fell into place. It was like a key finding its lock. Jorge Jesus expected from him exactly what Bruno had been desperate to provide: his entire career: leadership, intensity, and a relentless drive to dominate every single match. Very quickly, everyone at the club, the players, the coaches, the fans, came to the same realization: this Sporting team had to be built around Bruno Fernandes. Perhaps it was how devastatingly efficient he was, how every touch seemed to have a purpose. Perhaps it was his focus, the burning intensity in his eyes. Or maybe, just maybe, it was the simple, undeniable fact that he scored 5 goals in his first 4 starts in the league. The roar of the crowd at the Estadio José Alvalade was a symphony of adoration for their new maestro. His future at Sporting looked blindingly bright, and he just kept on shining. He won his first senior trophy in January, lifting the Portuguese League Cup. By the end of the league season, he had posted staggering numbers: 16 goals and 20 assists. He was a one-man creative force. Despite his heroics, however, Sporting could only manage a 3rd-place finish. And after that, all hell broke loose. Portuguese football fans, and I say this with a mixture of pride and exasperation, can be temperamental, to say the very least. It's one of the greatest and worst features of our footballing culture, depending on which side of it you're on. On May 15, 2018, just 2 days after Sporting had lost to Marítimo in the final match of the season, a loss that allowed their bitter city rivals Benfica to snatch a Champions League qualification spot from them, the unthinkable happened. Around 40 Sporting ultras, their identities hidden by masks and balaclavas, invaded the Alcochete Academy, the club's sacred training ground. They were there while the players were training for the upcoming Portuguese Cup final. It was an act of civil war. Several players, members of the coaching staff, and even Jorge Jesus himself were physically attacked. The incident became major international news. The details that emerged were shocking, complex, and frankly disturbing. It was a dark, ugly chapter for Portuguese football. What matters for our story now is the fallout. This terrifying moment led to a mass exodus of the club's biggest stars. Key players terminated their contracts unilaterally, fearing for their safety. Gelson Martins left for Atletico Madrid. William Carvalho went to Real Betis. The national team's #1 goalkeeper, Rui Patricio, fled to Wolves. Daniel Podence joined Olympiacos. Rafael Leão, the brilliant young forward, went to Lille. The club was gutted, its spine ripped out. The team's top scorers, Bruno Fernandes and the Dutch striker Bas Dost, also resigned. Bruno publicly stated that after witnessing the violence firsthand, he genuinely feared for the safety of his family. The club was in ruins. Rumors swirled that Bruno would be snapped up by one of Europe's giants. Real Madrid, Manchester United, and Juventus were all heavily linked. It seemed inevitable that he would leave. But then, in a move that cemented his legendary status among the Sporting faithful, he stayed. During that chaotic summer, despite getting less than 19 minutes of total playing time at the 2018 World Cup for Portugal, his first major international tournament, which coincidentally began with that epic 3-3 draw against Spain, where Ronaldo scored a hat-trick, he made a choice. He re-signed with Sporting. He chose loyalty over escape. He chose to stay and fight for the club that was on its knees. The story of how he and the other players who had initially resigned ended up playing in that Portuguese Cup final just days after the attack, is a tragic footnote. They lost heartbreakingly to a small bottom-half club, Desportivo das Aves. It was a sad, surreal end to a season from hell. As the new season began, the club was in a state of total rebuild. It was a shipwreck, and it needed a hero, a captain, to navigate the storm. After everything that had happened, it felt like it could be decades before Sporting got back to its former glory. But they had Bruno Fernandes. And honestly, that was enough. He was the type of player, the type of man who seemed capable of moving mountains through sheer force of will, just to see his team win. This was his moment to lead, and he embraced it with every ounce of his being. If you want to hear more stories about players who showed incredible loyalty and became legends by sticking with their clubs through the darkest of times, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We have so many more tales of resilience and heart just like this one. During the first half of that season, Bruno was simply sensational. He kept the team afloat almost single-handedly. But then, they gave him the captain's armband, officially. And in the second half of the season, his numbers, his influence exploded to a whole new level. It was otherworldly. In his final 16 league matches of that campaign, he scored or assisted 22 times. The entire league was at his feet. He was a god walking amongst mortals. Despite his superhuman efforts, Sporting still only managed to finish in third place. But the league wasn't the only prize on offer. That season, Sporting would face their arch rivals FC Porto in the final of both domestic cup competitions. It was a chance for redemption, a chance for glory against the odds. And in both finals, Sporting, led by their magnificent captain, defeated Porto to bring home both trophies. It was a stunning achievement, a defiant roar from a club that had been left for dead. Bruno had single-handedly dragged them back to glory. At the end of that season, his final tally was breathtaking: 50 goals and assists in a single season. From midfield. These are numbers that should have every super club in the world scrambling to write a blank check. And indeed, the back and forth between Bruno and Manchester United would dominate the entire summer transfer window. But frustratingly, to the disbelief of fans everywhere, no agreement could be found. The deal collapsed, and Bruno remained at Sporting. If his first international tournament had ended in disappointment, his next one would have a much happier ending. Bruno was called up for the inaugural UEFA Nations League finals in 2019, hosted in Portugal. He still seemed to be struggling to find his best form for the national team, perhaps still adjusting to the immense pressure of playing with the entire country's hopes on his shoulders. But the team was strong. Another Cristiano Ronaldo hat-trick in the semi-final against Switzerland propelled Portugal to the final. And there a goal from Gonçalo Guedes was enough to make them the first-ever winners of the Nations League. It was Bruno's first international trophy, a moment of immense pride on home soil. Back at club level, with the Manchester United move having failed to materialize, he stayed at Sporting for the first half of the next season. And at this point, it was almost unfair. He was just so much better than anyone else in the Portuguese league. Over that half season in domestic competitions, he racked up 21 goal contributions in 23 matches. In the Europa League, he was shockingly, consistently brilliant with 8 goal contributions in just 5 matches. This included a masterclass against PSV Eindhoven, where he scored 2 goals and provided 2 assists in a crucial match that Sporting needed to win to qualify for the knockout stages. He was playing a different sport. By the winter transfer window, it seemed Manchester United had finally seen enough. They were impressed, they were desperate, and they finally quit stalling the negotiations. The Wonder Boy, now a 25-year-old man at the absolute peak of his powers, arrived at Old Trafford for a fee of €55 million. and the situation he walked into was dire. At that point in the season, Manchester United had already been defeated 8 times in the league and were languishing in a dreadful 7th place. The atmosphere around the club was toxic. The team looked devoid of creativity, leadership, and fight. But much like he had done at a broken sporting, Bruno Fernandes changed everything in an instant. His impact was nothing short of a revelation. In the 14 Premier League matches he played throughout the remainder of that season, Bruno provided an astonishing 15 goals and assists. He didn't just lift the team, he transformed them. Manchester United not only clawed their way back into the Champions League places, but managed to secure a 3rd-place finish. He had been so exceptional, so utterly dominant, that he won the Premier League Player of the Month award in his very first month at the club. Then when football returned from the pandemic break, he won it again. He also won the Premier League Goal of the Month award, becoming the first player in history to win both awards in the same month. And we can't forget his continued rampage in the Europa League. He picked up right where he left off, contributing 4 more goals in the 5 matches he played for United in the competition, before they were knocked out by Sevilla in the semi-finals. In total, he finished that season's Europa League with 8 goals and 4 assists, winning the competition's top scorer award. Despite being a midfielder, it was just exceptional. With all of this taken into account, by September, he would win the Sir Matt Busby Player of the Year award. Voted as Manchester United's best player of the season, he won it despite having only joined the club halfway through. It was a testament to one of the most impactful transfers the Premier League has ever seen. What a story of perseverance, right? If you know a friend who loves an underdog story or needs a bit of inspiration, why not share this video with them? Sometimes seeing a journey like Bruno's is the motivation we all need. And just like that, we arrive at the season that was current when I first conceived this story. Bruno was on an absolute tear. Despite a weak start to the campaign that saw United slump as low as 15th on the table, his influence was undeniable. He dragged them up the league, and recently they had even found themselves in 1st place for the first time since 2017 under Jose Mourinho. He won the Player of the Month award another 2 times, putting him in the same company as legends like Frank Lampard, Cristiano Ronaldo, and Thierry Henry, despite having been in the league for less than a year. He had provided 23 goal contributions in 23 league matches. He'd added 5 more in the 6 Champions League matches he played. Though United were unfortunately unable to get past the group stage, the statistics were mind-boggling. He was ranked 2nd among the league's top scorers, the only midfielder besides İlkay Gündoğan in the top 15. This was made even more incredible by the fact that he was also just 2 assists short of being the top assist maker in the league as well. Bruno is, to say the very least, incredibly and relentlessly efficient. It is so rare to find a player who can pull these kinds of numbers, especially from midfield. But what's even more special about him, what truly sets him apart, is his mentality. He is a natural-born leader with a fighting spirit that you see only in a select few players each generation. His passion is so infectious, it can motivate the entire team. He's the type of player every single dressing room in the world would benefit from having. My own interest and admiration for this incredible player has grown exponentially over the last few years, and I just hope with all my heart that he keeps this up and fulfills every last bit of his immense potential, so that one day I can make another video, a definitive one, about just how good he was, just like I've done for so many other legends on this channel. I hope that one day I'll be able to refer to him with pride as Bruno Fernandes, the captain of the Portuguese national team. They are massive boots to fill Cristiano Ronaldo's boots, but honestly, I have never felt this optimistic about our chances of replacing the big man himself. And that's where this incredible football story concludes for now. What a journey, right? From a kid in Maia with a dream and no plan B, to the savior of two massive football clubs. I'm so eager to hear your thoughts. What moment in his story stood out to you the most? Did his struggle in Italy resonate with you, or was it his heroic stand at Sporting? Please share all your opinions, your favorite moments, and any questions you have in the comments below. I truly love reading every single one of them and building this amazing community of football story lovers with all of you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.